Welcome everyone to our April meeting of the Montana Accessibility Interest Group. Great that you could join us, and we're really pleased to have Kari Goin as our guest speaker this morning. She is a UX/UI designer and developer for Portland State University, and she'll explain that UX/UI. And she really brings her media arts, a graphics design background, and an understanding of social media and curriculum and accessibility into her work at Portland State. So she's got this broad array of skills, and she's going to share that work with us this morning. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your presentation, Kari. And Kari, I believe you want this to be as interactive as possible. I am going to read out the questions in the chat for Kari. She's sharing her screen in a way that she cannot see the chat. So I'll be watching the chat, but feel free to turn on your microphones as well if you have questions for Kari. So Kari, welcome and thank you for joining us. Looking forward to hearing the ideas that you're going to present this morning.
Thank you, Marlene. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you to everyone that came to my presentation at XLI. It's similar in nature, but also has a lot of differences. So you may notice some similar slides and information, but hopefully it'll be different enough that you can get something entirely new from it as well. And I'm Kari, by the way. And I actually got my beginnings at the University of Montana working with Marlene Zentz and Aaron Page, and I just am so honored to be able to come back now as part of the Montana Accessibility Group as a speaker and just show you a little bit about my work and the impact I've made here at Portland State in the last 7 months, and what I've been able to take from the University of Montana and bring here. So, and like Marlene said, any questions at any time. I encourage questions, conversation. If it goes a totally different route than the way I planned, then that's just wonderful. I love that. So I'm hoping to just introduce you a little bit to the idea of what UX design is. So I'll give an overview of all of that. And then also a little bit about Portland State and then my office, our accessibility initiatives, as well as some of the resources I've developed, including a specific case study on a course that I worked on. So all the principles that I'm talking about, I'm going to sort of demonstrate through how I've applied those into course design and development, as well as leave you all with some really sustainable resources that you can take back to your universities, because I want to make this a valuable experience for you as well. So let's just start off with what UX design is and what it means. So UX is essentially the user experience, and I know a lot of universal design for learning principles really repeat to put the user at the center of every learning experience, and I really take that and include it into the design process. So really putting the user at the front of the design process, and then UI stands for user interface, so it's just essentially designing the experiences, the courses. What does the front page look like? What do the individual pages look like? How does content flow? How is it structured? What are the visuals involved? And so there's a lot of components to really create the comprehensive whole that is user experience design. So hopefully I'll be able to demonstrate a little bit of what that means and what it is. A little less theory, a little bit more demonstration through application. So a little bit about me. My name's Kari, and like I said, I got my beginnings designing courses at the University of Montana, which was just the most valuable experience to me that I could have asked for. And I also have my Master's of Fine Arts in Integrated Digital Media from the University of Montana, so I'm really able to bring a visual side to learning, course design, curricular development. And I think that's really what makes my position here at Portland State unique. And I'll be able to hopefully show you some progress that we've made by sort of thinking creatively with art, design, and sort of putting the user experience at the forefront of design. So let's kind of gone through a couple of those. So I want to give you all a quick introduction to Portland State University. We're an urban campus, so we're located in downtown Portland. We're actually the largest university in Oregon, and we have 30,000 students as our population. And I work for the Office of Academic Innovation, and we're a new office. We're just about 2 years old this summer. I came in right around at the end of 1 year. So something that really makes our office unique is that we're strictly for our mission really supports faculty support and development with course design and really focusing in online course development. And so how we've been successful in our first year is really by making ourselves visible to faculty, letting them know they're supported. And this is something that my office did at the end of our first year. I didn't make this graphic. I just wanted to give credit to the designer here on our slide. But really being able to show the facts in a visual context of the impact that we've made as an office. And so that's just in year one. And in year two, my goal is to really have accessibility have its whole entire section on this infographic, but being able to be just transparent in this way to the university, to faculty has been really successful in bringing our faculty on board and realizing that they have support from my office. So I just wanted to share that because I thought it was kind of fun. Okay, so a big initiative of my office that's really new and exciting and unique is to make every online course at Portland State accessible in about 3 years. So it's a pretty ambitious initiative that we have here. And so we're doing this through a variety of ways, mainly through support for faculty in online web resources, workshops, outreach, conferences, as well as one-on-one consultations. And so that's a lot of my role that you'll see through capacity building. And we actually have created a faculty support desk. So just like a university might have an IT support desk for problems with logging in, we have one just for faculty support with course design. And that's really unique. And we just opened on Monday, and we've already had tons of faculty into our building asking for help. We offer offices where they can come and record, one-button studios where they can come and record their own videos for courses and talk to instructional designers or support specialists or what have you. So that's really the beginning of our process.
Kari, may I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
We are seeing two slides on our screen. We're seeing the current slide and the next slide.
Okay. Let me see what I can do here. I wonder, is that better?
Yes, that's much better. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. So this is just a little bit about our conversion process. I won't get too in-depth there since that doesn't directly involve me. But something that's really indicative of our success is this agreement signed by our office and faculty. So faculty actually have to have all of their course materials ready and prepared for our office to do an accessibility conversion for them, which is a challenge for faculty. I know as a developer, I'm still working on courses halfway through the semester for that current semester, getting that material and inputting it into the course halfway through or building as the course is live. So, faculty have to have all their materials prepped and ready to go, and this is a really big process. And so we partnered with the library to ensure that, copyright is there, and a lot of the library does accessible transcripts and things like that. So we're just including all of that into this whole process so that faculty know what we're making accessible, how and why and when. So that's a really big part of it is the agreement. And then the other part is we're calling it the checklist here, but it's actually called the worksheet. We're trying to get away from the idea that anything's like a checklist, but this is a resource that I've developed. Here we go, called the Accessibility Worksheet. I've essentially taken WCAG 2.0 guidelines and broken them down AA and applied them to faculty course design and development. And this is actually a resource that I'm going to share with you all today. It is a very beefy document. It's about 35 pages in Word, but what it does is it breaks accessibility for course design down into sections and then down from there into a way that faculty would be able to understand and use it. It's not a checklist. It's not saying if you check something off, your course is accessible. That's where we're trying to get away from the word checklist. But what it is an overview of what does an accessible course design process look like? What is needed? So it's sort of just giving people an introduction to how we build as course builders, as user experience designers. What do we consider when we're building? And then the conversion process will actually use this as sort of a method for making sure that everything is included in a course design and development. So that's something I'm actually going to just share with you all today at the end. I'll email it out. I'm still working on the beautiful design process of it, or the interactive PDF, but I'm going to share the Word doc with you. You're welcome to use it and use any of it that you want. I developed it to be an open resource for faculty and staff. If you do end up using it, maybe shoot me an email, and I just love to hear about it. Another resource that I developed as part of this process is this that I got sort of as an idea from working with Marlene, is creating a sustainable course as a resource for faculty to reference at any point in time. So I did a workshop called Building Accessible Courses, and then I left the content and materials up in our learning management system so faculty can revisit it at any time if they're curious about an overview of what that means, and specific to Desire to Learn, which is our learning management system. Just to give you a quick overview of the worksheet and what it looks like, this is the design PDF that I'm currently finishing. When it is done, I'm happy to share it. Like I said, the research is done, and that's what I will be sharing with you today. So what you're seeing is just a navigation system. When you hover over a certain section, it does change a color, and that, when you click on it, will actually jump to a section. So we've broken down accessible course design into about 7 steps: general considerations, design, structure, structural elements. We actually changed the 5th one to web-based media, external media, web applications, and next steps. And so every line item here, this is an example of design, actually has an appendix that explains and cites the WCAG item that it references, or any additional resources that may be needed. Since it's not entirely based on WCAG, it just incorporates A and AA standards on all levels. So this checklist is everything up to AA, and a couple of AAA, but not all AAA. And so that is a really great resource for our faculty. Just to sort of wrap up the conversation about a checklist, I found these images and thought they were really good explanation, maybe visually, of why we don't use checklists and why we try to develop something so that it's more of a comprehensive resource. So what you're seeing here are 2 wheelchair ramps that someone used as a checklist to say that they had a wheelchair accessible ramp in their building, but as you can see, neither one would be actually accessible to someone using a wheelchair. So I just thought that was a kind of fun visual resource to share with you all as to why checklists can fail. Okay, any questions on the checklist before I sort of move on to a little bit of the user experience accessible design? Okay. All right, so I like to start off with what is user experience design. And when I'm creating a course with a faculty member, I like to really think about 5 areas. So a course is always going to be accessible, collaborative, interactive, playful and fun is a big one, and that can be done in a lot of different ways depending on an instructor's methods. But it can also, this can be the area where accessibility can get tricky. As well as engaging, that's a big one. So these 5 concepts are something that I'll be referencing in a lot of my course design that I'll be able to show you here in a minute. So before beginning design at all, something that's really important to consider is what you're designing for. What platform are you doing? iOS? Are you doing laptop, desktop, smartphone, tablet? Just something to keep in consideration at any point in time when you're designing a course, a resource, or anything like that. Especially when it comes to accessibility and, for example, creating or designing PDFs, you need to make those accessible. I think that's a fairly widely accepted concept. But what about if you want your students to be able to access the information on a smartphone? What does that mean as far as PDFs and accessibility? Would it be better if you just created it as an HTML page instead? So just something to consider about what platform and method are you using and why is really the beginning stage of the design stage. So we're going to take a look here at a course that I helped to develop, and this is not the course, this is the before picture. So what you're seeing is our user interface in Desire to Learn. So every course currently looks like this unless someone from our office has been working in it. What you see on the left is the beginning of this Gothic architecture course. And as you'll see, we have orange headers with white text over the top. And something that's interesting about D2L is that it actually alerts you to the fact that these are inaccessible color choices, but yet for some reason our admin still insists that these are the default colors. So it's just something when I first started working, because I've really tried to bring us away from things that are blaringly against accessibility that even alert us to the fact that it's an inaccessible color choice. And then on the right we have when you actually go to course content, what does the inside of a course look like? D2L is based on like a book type structure. On the left you have week 1 to 11. We're on quarters here, so we actually have 3 terms in a year. And then you just have a long list of information and links. So from a universal design for learning standpoint, it's very convoluted. There's no flow or rhythm. It's just top down, tons of text, tons of scrolling. And it can get pretty cumbersome for a student to know where to go, what to look for in a class environment. So just to give a quick overview of the design process, step 2, we have on the left our inaccessible colors and our course image. And then on the right, we have incorporated a gamification, a program logo, a course, a branding logo, and now we have accessible color widgets. So that, it's a process, it's a stage. Okay, what does the inside of these courses look like? Oops. Actually, we're going to go to the quiz. So this course specifically was a challenge, and is one of the reasons why I wanted to use it as an example, because it's an art history course. And so when I was brought on, this quiz was being developed in Captivate as an interactive element for the course. So what we have is an image of a cathedral with a section highlighted that students are supposed to identify. And when I mentioned to the instructor that this is completely inaccessible, she had a little bit of a hard time. She really didn't see the amount of work that she would have to do to create this accessibly and why it was worth it. And so what I did was I let her know that I'm her ally, I'm on her team, and I actually helped her develop an accessible version for this. She did not end up having a need for an accessible text version this specific semester or any students that requested it. But an interesting fact about this, and another reason why we developed accessibly, is that halfway through the semester, through the week when students were taking this quiz, which is a SCORM file that's reported to the gradebook, actually the quiz broke. So all of a sudden it wasn't reporting grades, it was reporting wrong answers, text wasn't showing up. And so what was really nice was that we were able to actually just take the text quiz that I had built, the accessible version, and input it in instead of this quiz. So in 15 minutes we'd solved the problem. Because we'd actually built accessibility out from the beginning, this problem was solved, whereas in the middle of a week we would have had to, if we didn't have the accessible version, we would have had to rebuild something entirely. It would have been hours of work. And so I think this really demonstrates to faculty how building accessibly benefits everybody and saves you as a faculty member time. Because if we didn't have that accessible version, it would have just taken forever to try to rebuild or get students that were trying to take a quiz that wasn't working and their grade was reporting wrong grades. So building accessibly can really benefit everyone and every user, especially the faculty. It really saves them time. And students were able to quickly just pop out of one quiz and into another, and there were no problems. So less emails, less problems. With this interactive element of this course. So that was really a unique item that was really ended up being successful, and I think helped the faculty to really get on board with accessibility. And it's something that's interesting is we just finished up her 3rd design of this course. So we're looking at the 2nd here. This is the 2nd on the right. And she actually emailed my director and said, thank you for the team for incorporating accessibility because it was tricky. And she actually asked for it as a future a resource to be able to get help as a faculty member. So now faculty members that were initially resistant to the idea of accessibility are actually asking for it and maybe demanding help and resources for that. So this is progress as far as I'm concerned. And inside we have now what the course looks like after a redesign. So we have less content, we have a gamification element that's sort of fun and playful. Our images are still, our text that you're seeing in the marketplace are still images. We'll talk about that at the end. But you'll also see that we've sort of categorized it based on actions as well, pedagogically. So you'll see that there's more of a structure and flow to the content. Instead of a list of links, we now have listen, read, discuss, play. And then in the read and discuss, there's a do this week. So students really know what's expected of them each week. All right, so now we're seeing the course from sort of a larger perspective on the homepage. Courses currently in Desire to Learn have a homepage. This is the course homepage, and you'll see that they have these widgets, and these are the system widgets. And I know that Moodle actually has them on the sides of courses, and they're just when you arrive initially to D2L, not when you get into individual courses. So every single course in Desire to Learn will have these same widgets. And I just really struggle with it in the use of space, as you'll see on the right. There's just a huge empty block of space that's just being unused, and it's just unnecessary. And so I just like to sort of demonstrate how we work around and where we put those additional resources and what it means to really be able to say that we want to use the entire landscape of this interface. We want to be able to architecturally design when and where items are and not just put them places and hope that people will find them as a resource. Students actually have told me that they don't, and through our feedback we found that they don't use these widgets on the front page. And so something that I've been doing in the new design is actually just incorporating them into a resources page in the course. So it just eliminates all of this clutter. Okay, so just a quick overview of the before. And what you're not seeing on the left is that this page actually scrolls down. You actually have scroll, 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 scroll. Where on the right, this is that's the whole page there for a unit. So really just condensing information. But it is a process. There is still quite a bit of work that we can do on the right-hand side. So what does the development in the next stage look like? So from home pages, we have from beginning to end, left to right here. So the first image, you're seeing the course before any design. Then you're seeing it with design and some accessibility added into it. And then on the third end, you're seeing a whole complete total redesign. So you're seeing the widgets on the bottom now, and they're condensed. So the information is still there, but students can actually expand and collapse those, what we're calling widgets. And then there's a clear beginning place to start for the course. So students have and this is built actually off of our feedback in the design process. And as it is an accessibility consideration that you always want to anticipate is that where you begin and start in a course needs to be clearly identified. Also that the line of sight for someone is straight down the middle. So you don't want the enter the course button to be on the left or the top or the bottom somewhere where they can't see it, but right down in the center. That's for the best place for people to see it. So students would click enter the course and now they're within their course content immediately. So this process has really begun to incorporate a lot of these accessibility principles and maybe some of the ones that you're not seeing. We all know about headers and alt text and things like this. But what about the content restructuring? What does it mean to apply the visual stylings to an accessible design, right? So like I said, buttons and navigation elements should always be in the line of sight, right in the middle. So now what you'll see is the sort of progress. You'll see the first top image that says week 4 on the left, upper left, is just where you see the content, the scrolling content. The marketplace redesign down on the bottom. And then on the right, we have the totally redesigned content page. So this is actually the same page that you're seeing. But what we've done is we've just streamlined it. Navigation items are right in the middle in the line of sight, and you just have simple clickable pages that you can then click on and indicate where they're going. Okay, so now we're seeing the full course redesign from the front page to the inside course content. You'll notice on the right-hand side the column where it says welcome, start here. It doesn't include week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not a book-based format like D2L is structured to build that way. We've actually taken out and built it into pages. And I know that if you're referencing something similar in Moodle, I know there is a book feature that you can add in to build content in. Imagine if that book feature was just your entire course development, and that's D2L. So it's a little clunky as far as when you're considering like design and development. And every page is not a unique URL, so it creates a difficulty when designing. Instead of having that table of contents, we would now go to weekly units, and we would see 1 through 10 that students can then click on and then go to their weekly unit. So each click is intentional. It's accessible, it's easy to find, there's no confusion, everything is concise and clear, it's engaging, and it visually reinforces the design throughout the course. The Unit 1 pedagogically is still broken up into those same sections: read, media, discussion, quiz, checklist. The checklist is a really great feature that we incorporated after feedback from students saying it was hard to find information or know what was due. And so what we did was we just created a checklist so that students can check off every item that's due each week. So that sort of created a fix to that content issue or potentially accessibility issue. If students aren't sure what's due, they don't know where to go to turn things in. So that was a big one. The other big item was we don't know where to go or where to start with this course. And that's also a huge accessibility issue. If a student doesn't know where to go to find the information that they need, it's going to be a confusing and frustrating experience online for them. And so what we've developed here is this how to navigate this course page. And we found that this has been really successful. The first week the instructor had no confusion about where to find any information or how the marketplace worked, which is the gamification element that we've identified, which is last semester we only had about half the class take the orientation quiz, and this time we had about 90%. So I'm really seeing an increase in being able to find information. We explain how the weekly modules work, how the gamification works, and then just an orientation quiz on how the course is structured. And that's not for points, but students really have responded well to taking it and understanding what's expected of them in the online environment. So sort of what you're seeing is I'm going to go back. Okay, what you're seeing is an importance accessibility-wise on how you're structuring your content, and it's really important to base it on very simple, clean, concise items that students can then apply to something. So as we designed the weekly modules based on actions, read, everything in that line, it's a filler text now, but everything the instructor would put into that line item would be anything a student had to read for that week. Media would be a podcast, a transcript, or a video that they would have to interact with or watch and listen to in some way. Discussion, they'd have to actually participate in a class discussion. Quiz, they would take a quiz. Maybe that week wouldn't have a quiz depending on the instructor's course schedule. And then checklist sums it all up. So it's really structuring everything out in a linear way. Screen readers read top, down, left, right. And that's something I like to really enforce in my visual design as well, is you just work from top to bottom, left to right, but not so much that it's just a, check each one off, but it's an actually interactive process where you have to the quizzes in this specific course do require a gamification element. And so I think that it's just very simple, clear, concise instructions as well as design make for an easier, engaging experience so that students actually are excited to come to the class, they're excited to play the game, and that it's really, at the end of the day, a phenomenal experience for them. Just a quick overview of the marketplace, the gamification element we designed. If you weren't at XLI and you didn't see see this element, I'll give a quick introduction to it and then the accessibility that we incorporated into it as well. We built the marketplace as a game for quizzes in this art history course. So students take a quiz. If they get 85% or better on their quiz, they receive an object from the marketplace they can put into their treasury. So it's their student names, and they put an object in. And we found that students really were excited, and this is sort of a badging or credit-based system. They were really excited to get their objects each week. If they got 95% or higher, they were able to select their own wildcard object. And what we found was students were so excited to get their objects, they actually worked ahead in advance on their quizzes, so they would get objects before other students. So it's really turned into a fun game and way of reinforcing the quizzes in a visual way. So we built the the marketplace in Google Docs. That's the platform that we use here at Portland State, so that the students could just all have one place to be able to copy and paste their objects from. And what we found was that we really wanted to create a more accessible version and get out of Google Docs. And so what we did is I built it as HTML, and it's not in a table, so it's not restricted to that. But every image has alt text and a heading structure as well, based on its row. So, and then what we also did is we added tags to each image to help easily identify a theme. So on the left, you'll see a marketplace where a student was able to take an object and they would replace their name with the object that they took. On the right, you'll see just a static marketplace where they can just copy and paste it. So they can actually reuse the images over and over, which in the previous marketplace, there was only a limit of 5. So we tweaked the rules of the game, made it more accessible, but in a similar structure and format. We also originally had 6 marketplaces. So each unit, 1 through 6, had a separate marketplace with images that were indicative of that specific theme to the course. We found that really frustrating and confusing for students, and so we were able to then move into one marketplace. Every image has a set of tags that are associated with it, and that incorporates accessibility, is that every image now has alt text as well as tags. So if you didn't have the images, you could still play the game. It wouldn't restrict or limit you. So that was a great evolution of this gamification element in the course. And I think that's really what it's all about, is we can't make everything fully accessible right at the beginning without some trial and error. So really just the progression and evolution of making something accessible and making it easier for students to use. Okay, so this is just something I'd like to, before I sort of sum up my presentation, leave you with, and is that all of this is done just by me, by one person. All of you guys, the gamification course design was a team of us. But the design elements, you can all start to incorporate these things, just you. If you just have the passion to get it started and start working with accessibility. Even on a small level, you can make a difference. I'm seeing a quick problem with my slide here. But what I'll do is I'll just reference the text that this is referring to. I'd like to just leave you all with some of my tools that I use. So sorry about the text here, but something I mentioned at XLI as well is this tool called No Coffee. And I actually heard about it from Greg Krause, at Accessing Higher Ground, a tool that he developed. But it's a Google Chrome extension. And you can actually click it and simulate different visual disabilities within your website design. And it's a great reference to being able to show faculty how you test and play with your own personal designs within a web environment. And then the second one that you can't really see very well is the WebAIM Color Checker. If you're not familiar with it, I use it to check foreground, background, color contrast for all of my designs. And I do get a little frustrated and heartbroken when something that I've already designed doesn't fit the color past the WCAG WCAG 2.0 guidelines. But it's easy and gives you an additional a method of changing your colors. So that can be a great reference. WebAIM is just a great place to start anywhere you go. The WebAIM Wave Accessibility Checker is also good, just to give an overview. And this is something that I do for my office because we're so new to really incorporating accessibility as an office, is an instructor or my director will say, well, what's wrong with this accessibility-wise? And I'll just run a quick check and send them all the flags, and it breaks it down for you really easily, and then they start to see, oh, wow, okay, look at all these flags. Instead of me just saying headers aren't in place, a director that's never seen accessibility won't have any idea what that means. So this can be just a great way to quickly assess accessibility on a website or an HTML page. Design-wise, I have a couple that I'd like to just share with you. Brackets is something I've been recently introduced to. I'm going to say the words HTML, don't get scared. But if you ever do need to go into code and you want a really great visual coding text editor, Brackets is open source and free. And it actually lets you click on links and it shows you visuals within the code and the text, and it's also color-coded, which is really great if you're a visual person. Pinterest, I collaborate with a lot of designers from the University of Montana and other places on designs for courses through boards. And then if you guys remember the infographic of my office, that was done using Pictochart and is actually just a free online software that you can use. So that's all just really easily done through something like that. And then I had this resource that I wanted to mention when we were talking about color design. Let me scoot to the end here. I have this course here that I did, and you'll see a little bit of a before and after design here. And you'll notice that I've just completely gotten rid of widgets entirely. But something that I found really interesting in some of my research is the importance of color in design. And I mentioned how the orange on white isn't accessible. And what I usually find is people ask me, well, then what is accessible? What can I go with? And something that I found in some of my research is that the color blue is really pleasing to people with a lot of visual disabilities. And that the most interesting thing that I learned was that color is actually partially absorbed by your skin, and that by using color, and especially something that's a blue, actually has a positive impact in behavior in children and students who are blind as well as sighted. So color in designing your course is really important. Whether you are designing with UDL or not, it's really important to incorporate some sort of color in your course on any level. And I've cited that reference here in case you're interested in the study of that information about color and the impact on students with disabilities. And I found that really important, and I share that with those kinds of items with my office on a continuous basis. Just because I find them interesting, and I think it challenges a lot of traditional thought, and people don't necessarily think of color having such an impact, but it really does. So if you're unsure of where to start, maybe blue is a good place, and start with something small like that. Just say, I'm going to try to get some blue in my course today, and begin with something like that. Okay, so final slide is just as I have been saying throughout the presentation, that accessibility and incorporating universal design for learning is a process, it's an evolution. And so some of my goals for my designs is to integrate responsive fonts. So you'll see that I've been designing a lot with text on images. And so something that I'm hoping in the next year, my office can begin to start really working with more HTML and CSS to integrate font that isn't an image, so that a website can search for it or a screen reader can use it. So that's a responsive font just means that it's a font that a website can read and is not an image. And so that's something I'm hoping to play with and sort of incorporate soon. I'm hoping to encourage more universal design for learning principles to be included in every course map. Something my office is so excited about is making every course accessible. They're so focused on this that I think that they forget that accessibility doesn't mean usability. And so just reinforcing that ADA accessible is great as long as it's usable and incorporates universal design for learning. So that it's not just a checklist, but really a method of designing. So that's another goal of mine. Create and share these standards among our team. So I have a pretty big office, which is great and wonderful, and there's actually 3 people that do what I do, so I'm one of 3. But we all design differently, and we don't have standards or practice among the 3 of us where we actually are creating with the same accessibility principles, UDL principles, or anything like that. So I'm hoping to sort of create a set of standards amongst the 3 of us so that we can start beginning to design accessibly with the same standards in mind. And then finally, creating and sharing that through some visuals with faculty so that they are starting to understand what we do from a design process and what it means to do not ADA accessible. That's everyone's new favorite phase. Is it going to be ADA accessible? And I said, yes, but you don't want it to be. And then people get really confused, but I say, no, you want it to be usable. And so I think that's really important, is to create and share sort of the infographic like we had at the beginning that was an overall resource of my office, is to create something like that, but reinforcing universal design for learning that incorporates sort of those 5 standards that I've been sharing about the user experience, right? It's accessible, collaborative, engaging, interactive, and playful and fun. So I think that's really important to reinforce, and that's just an evolution since we're always hoping to continue moving forward as far as design and accessibility. And then, yeah, okay. So I hope that we can continue this discussion. I've just included my information here, as well as my Twitter, because I do check that as well. You're always welcome to contact me. I actually had someone, I believe from Great Falls, contact me about something for my design after XLI, and I was just so happy to actually have someone reach out to me. So please I'm happy to be a resource to you in any way that I can. As well as I'd like to share all my resources that I shared with you today and that accessibility worksheet that I mentioned with all of my research. So I'll actually be sending that out at the end of the webinar. So everybody in the Accessibility Interest Group will get a copy of that, and you're welcome to contact me with any questions, or if you potentially have feedback, that would be also great. And I really want to be a resource to anybody that has questions or is maybe anxious about getting started or anything, and just be able to provide you with what I've already started so that you can start with a leg up.
So Kari, thanks for that presentation. That's just fantastic. What I'd like to suggest too is that you're welcome to use the Montana Accessibility Interest Group list to post questions to Kari, and Kari, you're welcome, more than welcome. For instance, that one resource you had on the color blue, that article that you cited, you're more than welcome to share that over the list. I think. Okay.
No problem. I'd be happy to.
I think sharing those resources with all of us would just be fantastic, and I hope everyone in the group feels free to pop in and ask questions and share resources there. So that's...
Yeah, great. I'd love to use it as a resource and just sort of share that and start like I said, continue the discussion. Like I said, I'm totally open to collaborate and work as a team with the whole group. So, and I'm also happy to continue and explain any more like course design items that I have. I've prepared a few additional slides if anyone had questions, or I'm also happy to sort of walk through the worksheet a little bit if anyone had questions about that. And if not, I'll just send it out and we can go on from there.
I see some people I can tell the chat's being typed in. I can't read it yet. There's Cheryl's message. Are you self-hosted with D2L?
I'm wondering if she's talking about institutionally self-hosted. I guess I'm not sure what she means by that.
She's saying yes, that's what she means.
Oh, institutionally? Yes. I actually don't know. We have a whole team of two D2L administrators, and so I'm not positive if we are or not. I could maybe look into it.
Kari, the reason I'm asking is if you're hosted, you have a lot more flexibility with the course design and changing your home pages and all of that. And so I was trying to determine whether you have that ability to make those changes because you're self-hosted instead of hosted by D2L themselves.
Oh, I see. Okay, thanks, Cheryl. Yeah, so I believe we are self-hosted, but I think that our institution, Portland State as a whole, actually does put a lot of restrictions on what's possible. You saw those widgets for home pages. And this was maybe a little daring of me, but I kind of just went in and said, for example, the orange and the white, the structure that you're seeing, we actually can't change that. All we do is create a copy of a home page, and then we play with it from there. But we actually aren't allowed to change any of the main structural components. So it's just working around with what we have. And so I was just able to really get in and say, I'm gonna play with this and change it and see what people say. And they ended up loving it. So I guess that's great. I first initially built a Building Accessible Courses workshop. I don't know if you remember that. Let's see if I can go back to it. When I first arrived, I built this workshop here on the right. And my designers didn't like it. They were like, no, we can't change the main page. We can't do it. And so I was sort of discouraged. And then what happened was I just decided I was going to just one day play in my own sandbox shell and create a design. And so I just did it. And then I presented it to a faculty member and they loved it. So I think, and then was able to take that course for the Gothic art course and be able to input it into her shell. So I think some of it is just experimenting with what's possible, and I'm not positive if because you are not self-hosted that you are limited structurally, but any of this is possible if you're just in a basic HTML page or widget. So it's all possible. It's just adding images and links is really all that's done. There's almost no coding in any of this.
Thanks. I will definitely go in and start playing in my sandbox.
Yeah, and if you have questions, just shoot me and say, here's the screenshot of what I'm looking at, and I'll say, okay, well actually you want to click here or something. I don't know. If I can help, feel free to email me. If I can't, I'll let you know. So.
I wanted to mention too, I had to do some research on D2L for MSU Bozeman, and I was really amazed. I went to their website and just did a search for accessibility, and they have some really, really great information on accessibility and how to work with D2L in an accessible fashion. And they received an award a few years ago from the NFB. And I noticed, just as we have a collaboration around Moodle, there was a collaboration with different universities a few years back and D2L admits on their website that they really appreciate all the feedback they got from clients in terms of making D2L accessible. So I think it's really great that you're working in, first of all, an LMS that is fundamentally designed for accessibility, but then you're also teaching faculty how to use it accessibly and not sort of break the system by uploading content and adding content that detracts from the accessibility that's there structurally for instructors.
Yeah, I think that's a really, it's a nice benefit of working with D2L is that it is accessible. We just actually had their team on the phone yesterday, and everything new they were showing us is all designed with accessibility in mind. And so I think that is really important key factor. I think the issue that I have with D2L is that it's a linear structural system. And so from a design visual standpoint, it presents some challenges. And so I think that is just something that I'm overcoming and trying to say what can we do, what can't we do. Something that I do like Desire to Learn over Moodle for is that we can really upload our own style sheets in HTML. So if we are into coding, we can really almost have a separate experience. So something with Moodle we were finding was that uploading our own style sheets was breaking and linking to their style sheets and was just creating frustration. So I think that's something that's really nice is that we can build sites in HTML. And so because HTML, if coded correctly, is accessible, I think that's a really something to explore for the future. And thanks for the reference to MSU Bozeman, Marlene. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's really very well-designed website with the student guide and different things like that. We are working again here at UM with CSS and our current version of Moodle too, so always lots of exploration there. And I see in the chat, Kari, Nancy says, thanks, Kari, great job as usual. So great to see you at XLI. I'll be in touch. I think Nancy.
Great, sounds great, Nancy. I know, I wish we could have had more time to talk, but.
Any other questions for Kari? So Kari, if there aren't other questions, I'm really interested in seeing more about, excuse me, your accessibility worksheet.
Yeah, sure. Let me bring it up. Hopefully, if you can still see my screen. Is it still going?
Yes, we can still see you.
Okay. Okay, so Marlene, I need to let you know that I put this into Word for you because we actually use Google Docs as an office because this is we have a Google Apps for Education account, and so we collaborate. And because it's collaborative, it's easier for us as an office to do that. But I know that that screen readers can't access, let me know at XLI that screen readers, or specifically JAWS, can't actually access Google Docs. So I wanted to make sure that I have this in an accessible format for you and for the team. And so I put it into Word, and I also exported it as HTML, so you have either option. And I'll send that out right after the meeting. But are you seeing the worksheet page?
Yes, and thank you for doing that, Kari.
Okay.
I really appreciate that.
No
Google Docs are
Yeah.
accessible if you're using Chromevox, but most screen reader users are using JAWS. So
Right,
there's
correct.
an effort to get Google Docs to support EPUB 3. So there's lots of work going on, but thank you for the conversion in the meantime.
No problem. Yeah, and so I guess just to start off is that understand that this is a draft, that it's being edited, and I'm continuing to work on this. I did all the writing, design, layout, and everything. I did have my director as an editor, and it's also been shared with our leadership and our legal department. So this worksheet actually has informed our accessibility policy as a whole for the university. So it's really important. I'm really proud to be able to show it to you all today. I'll just give you a rundown. It is a draft though, so please just understand that I'm still working on it. And when it's all done and that everything's all finished, I'll make sure to resend it out. But for now, you'll have the research just so you can get started in looking at what I've done here. So I've got a few references. It's all based off of WCAG A and AA standards. So we have our sections. And just to back up for a second, I'm developing this as an interactive PDF. So it will all be sort of interactive and bookmarked and linked. This document itself is actually, it says 38 pages, so it's pretty beefy. So just know that if you feel like you're scrolling for days, that's just because this is the Word document. The actual interactive PDF will be more interactive. So we have our sections, design, structure, structural elements, web-based media, external media, web applications, and next steps. And then each one, so if I were to say, okay, site or course is perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust, I would actually then come down to the appendix down here, and it has section 1A, and then I've actually broken it down, and this is all my own language, so there's no copyright here. It's an open resource. I'm sharing it with you all. You're welcome to take it and use it. I guess just as if you end up using it, just write me, because I just love to know how it influenced you or what you've been able to work on it with. It is designed for Portland State University and D2L users, but it's all framed from a pedagogical content structure for people designing courses or potentially websites as courses. So a lot of WCAG is set to programmers or for people building websites or coding, and so I've been able to translate a lot of the law into this worksheet. So I've just broken down what each one means. Content is presented using multiple methods without losing information or structure. So what does that mean to an instructor or a builder? And then I have information as well as the source, the WCAG source, down here at the bottom. And sometimes they have more information, links, and things like that. So, and then I have some visuals and what it means, as well as a couple sources that are not necessarily WCAG. For example, this one's WebAIM. So I include everything cited and sourced in here. Everything is written in my own language. Nothing is taken from anywhere else. As well as just some specific links to other things that might relate to something at Portland State. However, you're welcome to translate it into University of Montana or Great Falls or whatever you need. And so as you come down, you'll start to see how broken down it is. I don't believe that I've missed anything. I've read WCAG a lot, way more than I'd like to admit. I know it pretty well front and back. I have eliminated a couple items that I feel like were specifically for coders or programmers that didn't relate to us specifically. But feel free to add, subtract, and use this document as you'd like. Everything in here has been reviewed and edited. In the copy from Google Docs to here, a couple things may have been missing, but it should be, I tried to give it a proofread or two, so it should be pretty much ready to go. I do include a lot of design things like font is not smaller, use a sans serif font. So I am really trying to incorporate a lot of design in here as well. Something like this, that's 2G, uses a sans serif font, is not included in WCAG. So it's really, this document is extensive. If you see anything in red, that's my internal note to link to a glossary item. That's an addition to the appendix. That's not included here. But so that's just my internal note there, as well as some of like these images I made myself. So you're welcome to continue using them. Yeah, I think we're right at 10 o'clock here for me, 11 for you. So I'm happy to go through it more, Marlene, if you'd like. But it really breaks down all of the items here.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's about 40 pages, so.
It looks like a great resource, Kari, and thanks for sharing that with us. Really appreciate that.
No problem.
And really appreciate your time with us this morning. Thank you. It's been really helpful to see accessibility through a different lens with you.
Yeah, I'm so happy that I could provide sort of a visual breakdown of like what actually goes into building accessible courses. Great.
We look forward to continuing your conversation through the group, Kari. And since we are at the top of the hour, let me just say that our next meeting is May 1st. Tom Seekert from Fresno State CSU is joining us to talk about procurement. Fresno State, under Tom's direction, did a proof of concept of an accessible procurement process for the whole CSU system, and he's going to share that, the model that they are now using throughout the CSU system in California. So looking forward to that discussion with him on Friday, May 1st. So thank you all for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful spring day there. And Kari, thank you once again for joining us as a guest speaker.
Thank you so much, Marlene.
Bye, everyone. Thanks again.
Bye.